Hello friends, welcome to my channel Dev Prep. Today we are going to cover one of the important questions that many of you might have in your mind. That is basically, should I learn a secondary language to obtain ITA? Now we all know that in Canadian immigration for the express entry CRS code, language plays a very important part. It is one thing that can affect your score drastically. But many of you who have low CRS score for some reason are thinking that maybe we should learn a second language to bump up our score. So today in this video we are going to cover whether you should do it, if you do take a secondary language, what effect it will have on your CRS score and so on. So I will show you all the calculations, but before I do that, we do have some assumptions that we will be taking in the calculations. So basically the assumption is that your age is less than or equal to 29. Your work experience is 3 plus years, foreign work experience. That is not the Canadian work experience, but foreign work experience. Your marital status is single, but the calculation is also applicable if you are married because the Canadian CRS score is designed in such a way that whether you are single or you are married, your scores max remain same. The target score that you want to achieve to obtain ITA is 470 because that is what the trend is going on these days. And of course, for some reason, you don't want to opt for higher studies or PNP, but rather want to take the language. So how will it affect? Let's see. So to begin with, first we will see what are the points, number of points that are allocated for the language in CRS, that is Comprehensive Ranking System. So we can see here that the official language proficiency, both for English and Canada together, they are 150 if you are with your spouse, and they are 160 without a spouse. Of course, now here one point to note is that although the points are more with without spouse, but there are some trade-offs between the two. So for now, for simplicity, we will just assume that these are the points they are. And there is a second important point to note here is the additional points grid, which is for French language skill. If you know French language skill, there are better chances. Basically, the French government gives you all the way up to 50 extra points to know French language. So this is one of the highlighting factors, and we'll discuss more about this in the coming up slides. Now, before we move on to the next slide, there is a chance that many people might feel that maybe Canadian government is giving higher priority to French language than English. Well, it is not so. So for that, we will first cover why there are additional 50 points allocated for French language skills. Let's see first why the Canadian government is doing so. So basically, this is one of the extracts that has been released just this year in October. Here you can see that the in Canada there are around 11 provinces, and amongst them Quebec is one where there is a significant portion of French-speaking community, and the rest of the communities mostly English is a dominant language. Now, what they want is they want to basically bilingualism is basically their funda that they want to encourage. They want people outside Quebec also to be speaking French. Basically, they want a French-speaking population outside Quebec as well, and that's why they are encouraging French language across all the country so that there is a good balance of bilingual population of both, giving importance to both English as well as French. And that's why recently what they have done is they have increased point from 15 to 25 for French speaking candidates as well as from 30 to 50 for bilingual candidates. So this is important to note. In Canada both languages have equal importance. Of course, in some of the occupations, knowing English would help you definitely better because that way you can communicate with international communities. And French is, of course, minority over there. But knowing it otherwise, from the government perspective, it is giving an equal priority to both the languages. So this is something that you should know before you get into that. and it also has an effect in the immigration system as well. So how? Let's see. Now, like I mentioned, bilingual candidates have better chance, and it is reflected in the point system as well. So here we see, uh, here we see that the basically you can see how the max 50 points are divided. You have to obtain NC basically CLB 7 in all four language skills. That is compulsory. That is minimum to obtain any points in this criteria. But as well as if you have to also score CLB 5 to get 50 points. If you are scoring CLB 4 or lower in English, then you will only get 25 points. But if you are scoring CLB 5 or higher, then you will get 50 points. So this way, Canada is encouraging French language as a minority, but as well as bilingualism by giving higher points for knowing English language itself. And this plays a very important role in your CRS score as well, how we will see in upcoming slides. So first let's talk about how the points are allocated for primary language, basically for obtaining a good proficiency with your primary language. So this is the grid which is taken from the official CRS criteria. You can see here that basically from CLB 9 and 10 they have the highest points. Basically these two are required to get more points. Any other lower level will not only give you lower points for language but also your work experience and skill transferability factor will also be affected by your CLB level. So getting a higher CLB level in your primary language is very very important. You can see here maximum you can get 136 points for knowing one language, your primary language, getting CLB 10 in across all four categories. Uh, Not only here you will get CLB 10, but if you get minimum CLB 9, then you will get highest possible marks for skill transferability as well as the education level, whichever you have, whether it is bachelor's or master's or just two certificates, either one you will get highest possible score if you have CLB 9. So these 2 points are very important to take in mind. And CLB 10, it can affect your score basically by 9 points more. So how we will cover it in the upcoming slides. Similarly, for the secondary language, the points are ranging from 1 to 0 to 6 basically. Here again, or only when you start with CLB 7, that is intermediate proficiency CFR B2 level. That is something where you start getting some substantial points, which is 3, and for an advanced user, you get CLB 9, you get 6 points. So basically, the division here is CLB 5 is very prime, is lower intermediate level B1, CLB 7 and 8 are higher intermediate level, and CLB 9 is for advanced levels, higher proficiency independent utilizer. So that is how CEFR, European CEFR is divided into the levels, language knowing levels. So to make any substantial difference, you have to at least obtain CLB 7 in your secondary language, and how it affects your score we'll cover it later. Now let's assume that in first case English is your primary language. So how will you get the CRF score? What are CRF scores you will get, and whether you would be able to obtain an ITA or not? Let's see in which all scenarios you will be able to. So here is the grid that we were talking about. Here you can see here with CLB, with English as your primary language, you need to have at least CLB 10 as well as either two certificates or master's degree to obtain ITA as of to date. If we take the target score of 470, you need CLB 10 at least, along with two certificates or either a master's degree to obtain the ITA. Otherwise, it is very difficult for you to obtain. Basically, the ITA. Now, so in this scenario, what would be the recommendation? So if we carefully observe for the first three options, which is 429, 441, or even 462, the score is very less. But whereas if you are already at 469 in this slot, we can obviously see that you already have master's degree as well as with CLP 9. It is very easy to try and improve your language skill to obtain CLB 10 and get a higher score rather than altogether learning the new language or going for masters or anything. If you are already at this place, CLB 9 masters with 469 score or something, or even 465 plus, then always it is recommended that you try harder little and obtain a CLB 10. That way, you will easily crack ITA cutoff and will obtain ITA in the next, in whichever next, draw comes up. So that is a recommendation. But for the remaining three, unless you are trying want to obtain for either masters or PMP, you can take secondary language. Basically, that will be one of your qualified option for you. So now, if you do take that secondary language, basically French skills, how will that affect your score? Let's see. Now, in the first case, let's say you obtain CLB 5, minimum CLB 5, which is basically B1 proficiency, which is at lower intermediate level. In that case, you will only get 4 additional points, and that will not affect your score significantly. As you can see from this grade, your score is still less than 470. You haven't reached your target score, and that's why it is recommended that you go for CLB 7 in French, CLB 7 in French, which is upper intermediate level. Now, if you do that, how your score will drastically change and how? Let's see. So in this case, you can see here, when you get CLB 7, not only you get points for language, but you also are qualified to obtain 50 extra points. Basically, the one which we had talked earlier. Government gives you additional 50 points if your French level is at least at CLB 7. So in this case, you get that 50 additional points. So along with your rest of the points for language and so on, you also get this 50 points, which will drastically improve your score and bring it to a minimum of 491, which is more than sufficient to obtain ITA. So in this way, with your English level at least at CLB 9 and French level CLB 7, and with at least a bachelor's degree and your age at least up to 29, or even I would say 30 to 31, in this bracket you can easily obtain ITA. There would not be any issue for you, and then you can of course go on ahead and fulfill your Canadian dream. But now that is for the case when English is your primary language. Now what will happen if French is your primary language? Let's see that. If French is your primary language, then we see that, like we had talked earlier, because you will at least obtain CLB 9 or 10 being the primary language, you are already qualified for 25 additional points. Now, with this 25 additional points, even people with CLB 9 and 2 certificates can easily qualify for ITA. They can easily reach the score of 470 and obtain ITA. The only trouble will be for the people with bachelor's degree or the ones who have age less than or basically greater than 29 or 30. They will have little bit of problem. So again, if we assume that they don't want to, for some reason, they don't want to go for master's degree or they don't want to go for even PNP, but they want to try to opt for a secondary language. They want to learn English, and of course, learning English can help you in longer term when you are in Canada. Most of the population, at least outside Quebec, will be English communicating people. Very few people would be fluent in French. So in that case, learning English is definitely going to help you. And how is it going to help you? Let's see. So like I mentioned, it is highly recommended that you take secondary language in this case. It has not only for the ITA for immigration purposes, but also for your life in Canada. It is recommended that you take English language, learn English language, and appear for an English language test like IELTS. Now there is one good news for French speaking people, and that is that if you obtain CLB 5, basically even B1 in English, which is very basic proficiency in English, basically lower intermediate level, you again qualify. Your additional points become from 25, they jump to 50. And of course, for the language itself, you do get some additional points as well. But with this, you see that your score minimum reaches 483. So when we saw earlier in comparison, if your primary language was English and you are learning French, you required at least CLB 7. But on the other hand, if your primary language is French and you go on to learn English, then you only have to obtain CLB 5. So here the threshold is minimum is lesser than the previous case, and it's more easier for you to obtain CLB 5 in English compared to anyone trying to obtain CLB 7 in English. An English speaking guy obtaining CLB 7 versus this one, it's definitely more. It is something that can be with proper dedication. It can be obtained within 6 months, and you can easily get your ITA. So that is all for today. I hope that many of your doubts got cleared. If you have any specific case in your mind, if your case doesn't, uh, fall within the assumptions that we had taken previously at the beginning of the video, then please do share your specific details in the comments below, like your age, your work experience, and so on, and I will try to see if learning a secondary language is recommended for you or not. So please, if you have liked my video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and have a nice day. Thank you.